My name is Morna Gerard and I'm interviewing Pat McNeil for Georgia State University's Women's March Oral History Project. The date is March 26, 2018, and the interview is taking place in Decatur, Georgia. So let's start with where you were born and when you were born.
I was born in Norfolk, Virginia in 1963.
And how did you get from Norfolk, Virginia to Atlanta? Like what was the route?
That's a really long story. The route was Norfolk to Ogdensburg, New York, to Connecticut, to Denmark, to Georgia.
So you went to Denmark. When did you go to Denmark?
I went to Denmark in, God, I hate dates. Somewhere around 1994.
And what took you to Denmark?
Yeah, that's a really long story that I don't want to get into.
That's fine. So when did you come back from Denmark then?
I came back from Denmark in 2000.
Okay. And what is your profession?
I am a senior product manager. Do you want me to say for who? Or?
You don't if you want to, you can. You don't have to.
For a logistics company.
Okay. And working, that sounds like to me, as somebody who doesn't really know a lot about it, it sounds like quite a male-dominated profession.
It is. It's trucking, so it is very male-dominated. However, it's a really great company that encourages women to. There are a lot of directors and a lot of women in positions of power, and I have to say that I have run across some real ignorant men, but for the most part, I've been very blessed with men who will answer all of my questions and not make me feel like I'm a stupid little girl because I don't know about trucks.
That's great.
Yeah, it is really great.
Can you describe, as you were growing up, what your family's political leanings were?
I cannot. I don't think that my parents ever talked about stuff like that.
I think that's quite common. It's like you don't talk about religion or politics.
Well, religion, that's... I would imagine, being Catholic, that we were probably Democrats. So, I'm sure that there are Republican Catholics also, but yeah, I have no clue.
Were they ever involved in any kind of activist activity?
Not activism. My mother volunteered for Meals on Wheels, and before I went to school, I would ride along with her. Back in those days when you could leave your kids in the car.
And were you ever involved in anything like marches or protests?
Not really marches or protests, but when I lived in New Haven, I did some fundraising. Well, I guess it wasn't in New Haven. I was in Waterbury at that point, and the city of Waterbury wanted to bring the AIDS quilt to the city. And I got involved with the fundraising, and I guess the woman who was in charge of the fundraising, I guess made a bad investment and lost a bunch of their money. So I ended up taking over the fundraising, and it was cool.
And how long did that go on for?
I don't know, maybe 6 months, 8 months, something to that effect. Yeah, and I think that's really about it.
Up until the march in 2017, had you attended any protests before?
Not that I recall.
And I want to start asking you about the march, but before I do that, do you identify with a political party at all?
You know, that's a really hard question because I've kind of, I guess, always identified as independent, but there are parts of all of them that I agree with and just some I disagree with more parts than I agree with, I guess is.
In the election cycle of 2016, who did you support?
Hillary Clinton.
So let's talk about the night of the election.
Oh my God.
Walk me through your experience of the night of the election. Or actually the day and the night.
Okay, so I voted, obviously, and then that night I was just trying to watch everything. I was, watching MSNBC, and I was watching Twitter. I was looking at Twitter and just trying to just follow it, and then I don't know, maybe around 10:30 or so, Tara went to bed because she was like, she said, I'm going to bed because he's not going to win. And then right after that, it all started to go downhill. It seemed like it went downhill really quickly. And it was so even for a really long time. And then, yeah.
Did you wake Tara up to tell her what the results were?
I did. I said, he won, and Rachel Maddow's crying. Because she was trying not to cry, but she was like, this is our life now.
How did you feel personally when all of this, what was going on?
I was shocked. I could not believe that. I guess I thought that, that the number of people who bought his rhetoric was small, but loud, and I just thought it was mostly uneducated, poor people. And so I didn't think that there was going to be people who would not vote. Someone that I worked with said I didn't want either one of them, so I just wrote none of the above. And something that I didn't even know was possible was people who voted for everything else on the ballot except for the president. I didn't think that you could not vote for a certain part of the ballot. I never knew that. And then of course all of the college students that just thought that, not realizing that, not voting for one is in a sense voting for the other. I mean, it's important. Votes count. And I think that a lot of people realize that now, or at least I hope they do.
You were at work the day after the election?
Yes.
What was the mood at work?
Work was, people kind of really weren't talking about it. I think that was, the biggest, lots of, well-to-do old white men, and so there was a little bit of talk about it, but not, I think that some of those people actually thought that he might do something, And I also talked to someone who said that they voted for him because you're a traitor if you don't vote with your party. Which kind of, and they said, but he's not going to win. And I have not seen that person since then, to I don't think I would even bring it up, you know. But now these people are, these people that I work with anyway, are, they almost seem embarrassed, which I think is a good thing.
So, how quickly did you decide that you were going to go to one of the marches?
We decided right away that we wanted to go to Washington. It wasn't even let's go to a local one, or there wasn't any discussion about it. It was always Washington.
Why was that?
I think because for me it just seemed the most important place to be to show support. And I mean, not that the local marches weren't important, but I kind of felt like the more people were in Washington, the more exposure that they would get. And so
can you tell me about making plans to go?
Well, we looked at a couple of different options. We looked at, there were a lot of buses. I mean, it was pretty well organized if you knew, if you were on the Facebook pages and things, and so there was a lot of buses that were going, and at first we talked about going on one of the buses, and then just kind of decided that we're at an age where we don't want to ride all the way to Washington in a bus with a bunch of people. And now we're glad we didn't, because some of the buses didn't even make it. So, so we have friends just outside of Washington, and so we flew to them and stayed a couple of days there, and then went to Washington. They let us borrow their car, and then went back and spent a couple of days after with them.
And they weren't going to the march themselves?
No.
Well, that was very nice of them to let you borrow the car.
It was.
When you made the decision to go to DC and to march, was there one particular or a couple of different issues that were like really important to you, that you know, it's like, this is why I'm going to march. This means a lot to me.
No, I don't think that there was any. I was going because I was so mad that this had happened, and you know that this man is obviously a crook, and it was really all about that.
And tell me who you went with.
I went with my wife Tara, and you, and like names. You want names?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Sydney Waller, and Sydney's friend Beth, and then Hillary. There was more people than I can remember, honestly. We had quite a crew, and it was a really it was a good time. It was a good time, you know, going when we all met at that woman's house the morning of the march, and she had breakfast for all of us. She had no clue who any of us were, and she just opened up her home to us and fed us, and it was just awesome.
There's a lot of the milk of human kindness flowing that day, wasn't there?
There was. People were all being very friendly and polite, and
before we get to the march, talk about getting up the day of the march and actually physically getting there.
So, gosh. So we got up, and we were staying north of the city. And so the night before, we kind of scouted the train station, to figure out where we were going to park. And then I can't remember how early we got there, but we thought that we were being so smart getting there so early. And there was a ridiculous number of people there. But it was great because everybody had hats on, and it was men and women and kids, and so it wasn't really just it may have started out as a women's march, but there was a lot of men there also. So so we parked, and the best thing we had done was when we scouted the train station the night before, we bought passes. Or did we have passes? I think we bought passes before we left. And that was a really good thing to do. So, so we got in line, and the lines were huge for people who did not have passes. So, and relatively short for people that did. So, we got into the city pretty quickly. And then, I don't remember what happened after that. We must have met up at the hotel and then gone to and then gone to that lady's house.
So everybody had breakfast.
Yes.
Had a last pee.
Yes.
Talk about getting from there to the rally. What you were seeing around you.
So we had all made signs, and
what did your sign say?
My sign said, "I am woman, hear me roar." And also on the back of my sign, I had written the names of my friends who were not able to come, and that had asked me if I would do that. So. There was a lot of activity in the street, a lot of people, a lot of hats everywhere. People were commenting on each other's signs. I think it was cold. Was it cold? I don't remember. It seems like there was something with the temperature. But yeah, it was a longer walk than we all thought it was going to be from this lady's house. But she was leading the way. She seemed to know where she was going, and so I think she took us the shortest route possible. But probably the coolest thing was that we were coming across, I guess, a street or a park, and there were people wanting to take pictures, and we ended up like at the top of a hill, and the march was like below us, and it was just more people than I have ever seen in one place for any one thing, and it was just amazing. That I was like, oh my God, where did all these people come from?
Was that the point, you think, because most people thought it was going to be a big march, but there's always a point throughout their day where it's like, well, this is bigger than we expected.
For me, I think that it was that point, and then when it actually started, and everyone was out in the street, and kind of just and we stopped at the porta potties, and then coming back to get into the crowd on the street, and just like looking, up and down, and when you got to places where you were at kind of a higher elevation and you could see down, and it was like so many people.
So you got down to the sort of the big crowd area, the rally area.
Yes.
Where were you located?
We ended up right next to a museum, and kind of on the lawn there was so many people that it was just, everyone was really cramped together, and it was really hard to hear what we were to the side of the stage, and so we couldn't hear what was going on. And my niece had come down in a bus from Syracuse, New York, and she was on the opposite side of the stage from where I was, and we just couldn't even, we never connected because there was so many people in between us.
Were you able to text her?
Yes. Yeah.
So near yet so far.
I know, because I don't ever get to see her, and it was it was really sad. And then afterwards, I don't know, they were going to go to some bar. They're young, and we're like, we're old and tired. We don't. It was a lot of walking, especially when you're walking really slowly. And I think that probably one of the most trying points of the march was actually when it started and just trying to get in line, and people were just knocking things down, and we were trying to protect the flowers where we were by the museum so that people didn't step on the flowers. And I think by that point people were starting to get a little antsy, and I could see people starting to get a little bitchy about things. So it was good that it started to move then.
There were a lot of speakers.
There were, and it was frustrating that we couldn't hear who they were and what they were saying. And yeah.
So you get to the place where the march is taking
Mm-hmm.
place, and you said you went to the Portaloos.
Yes.
And then came out and everybody started the march.
Yes.
When you were looking around, what like you said earlier, there was men, there was women, there was children. Did you see like other nationalities or other like people who had
it
queer
was,
or like
Yeah, it was everyone. I mean, it was all colors and races and orientations, and it was just awesome.
And what about the signs? Because you took a sign. Were there any other signs, looking around you that you thought were really like?
Oh my
very
God!
cool?
Yeah, there were so many, and I don't know if I can remember any of them.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. I made a list somewhere, and I took a bunch of pictures.
And your pictures are in the archives.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That video where they kicked me out of the... Yeah, I think I sent it to you. I took a video. They were... so the next day, right, they had all of the signs like lined up on this one street, and I went over there to see it, and because I was just filming, I wanted to film all of the signs, and then they came and they just made us all leave. They kicked us all out, and there was a guy with a bulldozer, like a little, and I thought, oh, they're just gonna, yeah.
While you're marching, what's the mood of the crowd around you?
It was very upbeat. There was a lot of chanting, and everybody was, someone would start a chant, and then everybody around would would continue with it. And every time we came to a cross street, and you looked at either side of the cross street, and it just seemed to go on forever.
Were there any chants that you particularly liked?
I don't know. I don't remember now. It seems like there was some that I really got into, but I don't remember now.
And what was your own mood? What were you feeling emotionally as you were going through all of this?
Well, I was pretty happy to be there, and I was really happy that there were so many other people who felt the same, almost a sense of hopefulness that maybe this isn't going to last. And so, yeah, it was happy and hopeful, and just to be around all of these people that felt the same way, and all of those hats.
What did you think of the pussy hat, like as a symbol of the march itself?
I thought it was a cool idea because keep your head warm, and it's something that's easily seen. No matter where you are. I mean, any of the pictures that they took, like from balconies or helicopters or whatever. And I think that it's something that, like, probably for the rest of my life, every time I see one of those hats, or I'm gonna think of that march. So yeah, I thought it was a good symbol. I wish that I would have known about it a little sooner, so that I could have made some more, but I did pop out a few. So.
How many did you make?
I want to say I made like 4 or 5.
Did you see along the route, did you see any protesters, like counter-protesters?
I think I might have at one point, but I didn't really pay attention to them.
I think there were probably too few to even
Yeah,
worry about.
yeah, it was.
And what about police officers? Did you interact with any? Did you see like many of them?
I don't remember, but I mean, they had to have been there. So, but no, I didn't interact with any. But yeah, they had to. There had to have been.
Was there anything like when you had these expectations of like this is what this maybe going to happen at the march?
Right.
Was there anything that surprised you when you actually got there and it was a reality?
I think the most surprising thing for me was the number of people, and the kind of the mood of solidarity, and everyone just being very gracious to everyone else.
And was there any time throughout the day you got emotional?
Not that I recall. Maybe if I had been able to hear some of those speakers, it might have happened. But
were you ever able to hear the speeches on TV afterwards?
I think I saw clips of some of them.
And were there any that kind of like spoke to you?
Not that I'm recalling.
Okay. So, talk about the marches. You marched all the way to where?
All the way to the end.
Yeah, which is like the White House, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, sort
Kind
of.
of.
You could see the White House from there.
And
They knew better than to let us too close.
How were you feeling physically by the time you got there?
I was tired by the time I got there, and I was starting to feel my legs. So I was kind of glad when we got to the end, I have to admit.
I think most people were.
Yeah.
What did you do after the march ended?
After the march ended, God, it seemed like we walked and walked and walked. We got an Uber and went to a restaurant and met up with everyone else and had dinner. And someone bought us dinner, which was amazing and totally unexpected.
Were the wait staff at the restaurant friendly?
Yeah, they were.
And so then you, I guess, went back to your friend's house.
Yeah, actually, we went back to the hotel because we stayed another night. And on the train, on the way back, there was a woman who she had to work, and so she wasn't able to go to the march, or she just caught the end of the march or something, and she didn't have a hat, so Tara gave her her hat, and she got really emotional. But we took pictures with her and, traded information, and I don't know that we've ever heard from her, but it was still fun,
And we'll talk about, you said you stayed overnight.
Yes.
How long did you stay in DC?
I think we stayed 2 nights.
Went back on the Monday.
Yeah.
So what did you do on the Sunday?
Well, wait a minute. The march was what day?
Saturday.
Saturday. Oh, so we must have gone back Sunday. We must have gone back to Teresa's on Sunday, and then we went back home on Monday. So we went, we drove back to Virginia, and we spent a nice day. It was Tara's birthday, and Teresa had made cupcakes, and we went out to eat with them, and it was just really nice.
And so you got back to, you flew back to Atlanta. Were there any people, did you see any protesters, marchers on the plane on the way back, do you think?
I don't remember seeing any. I don't know if everybody left the day before to get back to work. Definitely on the way up we saw some people, but not nearly as many as Sydney had on her flight.
Yeah, I was on the same flight as Sydney. There were a lot.
Yeah.
And when you got back to Atlanta, when you got back to your day-to-day work, were your friends supportive of the fact that you'd marched? Were your family supportive of the fact that you'd marched? Were you able to talk to them about it?
Well, I had told a couple of my sisters that I was going, and it wasn't really anything that we talked about. One of my sisters is a I want to say a Trump supporter, but her husband is a Trump supporter, and I think that she just does whatever he does. Excuse me, so as not to, I don't know, because she thinks she should or something. I don't know. My other sister just thinks if she ignores it, it'll all go away. So we didn't really talk about it, and there was, the guys at work were pretty good. There was a little bit of teasing, but I said that I went, and that was pretty much it.
And did you have a chance to see any of the coverage on TV?
I must have, because I remember seeing all of the local marches, and the there was a march somewhere that had like 3 people or something, and but just all of the people in like places like Alaska and Iran, and I mean, that's pretty ballsy to be there and to do something like that. So it was a good feeling, that it was like people from all over the world.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, is that the first time that that's really happened with a protest, where it became a kind of a worldwide thing?
Well, I think, yeah, probably aside from like Farm Aid or one of those things, that was big in the 90s or whenever that was. But I think I think it was the first time as far as like a full-fledged, I mean, when have we protested in this country since Vietnam? You know, we really haven't. I don't, not a huge protest like that.
So we're more than a year
Yes.
since the inauguration. Once you got back from the march, did you participate in any indivisible groups or any letter writing, postcard writing, anything like that?
You know, we had started a group, and we met a couple times, and we just really couldn't seem to get it going. And so no, and then I think that as it sank in, that I don't know, I guess that I just thought that something was going to happen. It was like something has to happen. And then when nothing happened, I got depressed and just really kind of hopeless. And I have a friend in Colorado who's like, no, you have to, you have to keep hope and all of this, and she's older than me and remembers Watergate a lot better than I do, and she's like, it took 4 years to impeach Nixon and all of this, and I was like, well, yeah, this guy's way more dangerous than Nixon because he's gonna kill us all, and yeah.
Is there anything that's happened in the past year that you feel is like, oh, this is just the worst? There's lots.
It seems like every day, something. I think that for me is that I see him just get away with all of these things. And I wonder, why is no one stopping him? I mean, whatever happened to the post office controversy? And because I remember in the march, we walked past the post office, and they're just so corrupt. But I think that, the whole thing with North Korea and just the stuff that he says to people, and I know that every incoming president from a different party tries to undo, the guy who was there before him, but it really seems like he's just gone out of his way to undo everything that Obama did, and probably for me is I really feel like he's stuck it to all of these people who supported him and voted for him, and that's, to me, the worst. So
have you marched, gone to any other protests since then?
I have not. I wanted to go to the March for Our Lives protest this past weekend, but had a previously scheduled doctor's appointment.
I'm sure there'll be plenty more protests.
I'm
Moving
sure there
forward.
will be. Oh.
Thinking, like, we have midterm elections coming up
Yes.
this year. There's a few months until they take place. Is there, like, if you were thinking about, looking at things positively, what do you hope would happen for this country before or by the time of the midterms?
Well, I hope that we get some control of Congress back, which it seems like is what's going to happen, because it seems like little by little we're getting seats back in all of these small, these elections leading up to, but also seeing people who, different people are being elected into Congress, trans people and gay people and black people, and it's just, it's what we need. We can't just keep letting these old white men, because they're all so corrupt and just, and the special interest groups and the lobbyists, and I really wish that we could do something about that, because we can't, the average man on the street can't compete with, with these special interest groups, and it's, yeah, the more I learn about all of these things, the more, studies on obesity that are paid for by the sugar companies, and the sugar company pays the people doing the study to say that fat makes you fat and not sugar. I mean, it shouldn't even be allowed that someone who has an interest in this study can influence it in any way.
It makes it hard to believe anything that you read, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. I just kind of feel like we're kind of just spinning really fast right now, and something's going to happen. Either, everything's going to collapse, or more hopefully, we're seeing this swing towards, kind of backwards to more local, small farms, people being more concerned about their communities and things like that. And then, but I just read an article last week that said that the big, everybody is buying the local grown products now, but like coffee doesn't grow in Utah. But if they roast the coffee beans in Utah, they can call it a local product. And there's no regulation to that local stamp. And there's no minimum number of ingredients that have to be local for you to call something local. So you can import something from China, put it in a box here, and call it local. It's just, I mean, I don't know. Everybody just takes advantage of everything, because anybody thinks about is money and status, and everybody wants to make a CEO salary, and they want to pay Walmart prices for everything, but they want it all to be made here. So that's my rant.
Looking at things from a more pessimistic perspective.
That's pretty pessimistic.
What do you worry about potentially happening leading up to and around the midterms?
Well, nuclear war before the midterms, I would say, would be the biggest thing. But I guess that my fear is that we won't get the seats that we need to get control back. And there's so much. I think that one of the most distressing things for me about this presidency is that he's made it okay to be mean, and I'm hearing, he's a master at blaming other people. If you were to say to him, you broke that vase, he would say, well, what about this guy over here? And now I'm hearing that everywhere. No one wants to take responsibility. All they want to do is deflect blame onto someone else, or go, oh, look, here's something shiny over here. And it's all about, it's like a magic trick. It's all about taking your focus off of what it needs to be on so that you can do something sneaky. And so that's my other fear, is that something like that is going to happen. There's going to be more, you know, crap about election tampering. Not that I think that election tampering is crap, but, you know, I think that it probably does happen, but they're going to make so much noise about it that it's going to take away from the issues. And I just read Georgia's talking about going back to a paper ballot. So just to get away, and that might be what we have to do. We might just, you know, we're way too electronic.
So there's a lot been going on. There's a lot to think about. Like we're constantly barraged with like news and all that. Well, how do you manage not to get burned out? What do you do?
I don't think that I have managed. In the beginning, I made a fake Twitter account, and it was called Cheeto Prez, and then I would just tweet obnoxious things at him, and tell him what a jerk he was and how much everyone hated him, and my goal was to get him to block me, because I thought that I've won. If he blocks me, man, I've won. But he never did block me, and then I just got bored with it, because, you know, when nobody acknowledges you, then it's not. So I don't know if I know how to answer that, because I'm not sure that I'm still burned out, because it just continues to be every day. Although, you know, the Mueller investigation gives me hope, but he can, and, you know, all this stuff with Jared Kushner getting his security revoked. So little by little, you know, it all looks like things are going in the right direction, but I don't know. I've been hopeful before, and then, you know, it's like he just gets to do whatever he wants, is the way it seems. So yeah, I don't know how to answer that. I try not to watch too much news, and I try not to read too much on my phone. I'm a little concerned about Tara, because she's just constantly reading news on her phone and knowing, you know, did you hear this? Did you hear that? And, you know, watching MSNBC at night, and so she watches Rachel Maddow, and I just have to go to bed before she gets to the point, because she never gets to the point. I love her. I think she's adorable. I think she's so freaking smart that it's just ridiculous, but it's like, get to the point, Rachel.
Now, I want to touch on something personal, because I think this is an important thing to talk about. It's like last year you and Tara got married.
Yes.
What is your... do you have any fears about what this government is going to do around gay rights?
You know, I did, which was why we got married. You know, we had, so before 2015, we had friends who were going to other states where it was legal and getting married. We just said, we'll wait until it comes to Georgia. And then in 2015, it, you know, became federal. And then we were like, oh crap, what are we going to do now? So we didn't do anything. And then when Trump got elected, we kind of said, well, we have to now, because we have to do it before they take it away. But I really, you know, honestly, I think that gays are more an issue for Pence than they are for Trump. And I was watching John Oliver last night, and they were talking about someone in Trump's White House saying that Trump had, whenever the subject of gays would come up, that Trump would point at Pence and say, well, don't ask this guy, he wants to hang them all. And so I don't think that Trump cares about gays. I think he only cares about money. And I just don't even think that it's something that's even on his radar. Pence is scary. You know, if in the beginning, you know, I hate to say things like this because it'll come back and, you know, karma will come back and get you, but I thought, well, maybe somebody will just shoot him, you know? But then we'd get Pence, and I think that's even worse. Because while I think that Pence is probably a better diplomat than Trump is, he's just nuts. And, I mean, he's not that much older than me. He's like 56 years old, or 56 or 58, one of those two.
He looks so much older.
That's because John Oliver was saying he's like 4 months. He's 4 months younger than Flavor Flav. And so it's not like you can say it's a generational thing that, you know, that he's like 70 years old or something, because he's not even 60. So yeah, so I guess my other big fear then would be that something actually would happen to Trump while he's, you know, got his face in a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And then we'd get Pence.
So, looking back, do you think that the Women's March, the marches generally, were they a success?
I do think that they were, because I think that the marches and then the Me Too movement and all of this, and I'm not sure that the Me Too movement would have happened without the marches. So I really do think it was a success, because I think that it's like, it's kind of forced women to be accountable for themselves and just not take this crap anymore, because it's you know, it's ridiculous. I work from home every day now, but 4 years ago I had a boss who said, well, no, you can't work from home at all because you'll just do laundry all day. And I said, well, for one thing, I do my laundry on the weekend. And for another thing, if I want to take my lunch hour and eat my lunch for half of it and do laundry for the other half of it, I can, because it's my lunch hour. So, yeah.
But you managed to be able to work from home.
Well, I got a new boss.
Oh.
Because that was like probably the worst man that I have come across in my 17 years with this company. He was the worst, and he was just horrible. So, but now I have a good boss, and he's a cool guy. He was like, oh, you know, you went to the walk? I said, yeah, good for you. You know, it's probably not what he was thinking, but that was what he said to me. So,
if someone was to think about going to another march, like, because there's marches all the time, what would your piece of advice be to them?
Take a roll of toilet paper.
Explain why you said that.
Because there was no toilet paper in the portalets at the Women's March, and I had a roll of toilet paper in my bag, and I was a popular girl, let me tell you. And actually, people let me move to the front of the line. People would let me in front of them if I gave them some toilet paper. So I really just zipped right up to the front of the line because I had toilet paper and I was giving it away left and right. Yeah, I think that the sessions that we had with you were really helpful on what to do if there are counter protesters. So I think, be prepared would be, the biggest thing. Just like being, take some sort of course or talk to people about what to do in the event that somebody throws a smoke bomb or there's some sort of an emergency. So I think that would be.
I think all of us, having met the week before to talk that over, I think all of us felt a lot more comfortable
Yes.
with what we were about to do.
Yes.
Because we had plans, we had contingency plans for.
And we
everything.
met a lady. We met a lady there. Her name is Sharon. And she was the one who kind of helped us with the group that we got going afterwards. And she was there all by herself. And she just happened to walk by us, and she had a John Lewis bumper sticker on her backpack. And we stopped her and gave her something. Or maybe she gave us something. I don't remember. But anyway, we just started talking to her, and I was just so in awe that she did this all by herself, because I don't know that I would have done it by myself. So.
Yeah, I'm that impresses me greatly.
Yeah. And so, and I've saved everything because I have a granddaughter, and I've saved my backpack and everything in my backpack. Probably even what's left of my roll of toilet paper is in there, and just everything that I collected in all of those pictures, because I'm hoping, she's 3. I'm hoping that when she gets into high school, that this is just going to be history, and she's going to have to do a book report on it, and then she'll get the best grade because she's going to have her grandma's backpack.
Speaking of children, how do you think, because you are a mother,
Yes.
if you had smaller children at this point, how do you think you would have explained all of this to them?
I don't know, because you really have to be able to explain it to them in a way that they're going to understand, but you also have to not make them hateful. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how I would do that.
I think it's very challenging, because it's like
Yeah.
the bully won.
Yeah.
And in the way we're all brought up, it's like that's not the way it's meant to happen.
Well, true, but I think that bullies do win a lot, especially with kids. And so I think that, a good lesson would be to just, teach them not to be that way. And I think that, I don't know, I have go on a rant about child rearing, but I think that we have to be responsible, for our children. Everybody says it takes a village, but when I was a kid, it takes a village means that any mother on the street could beat your ass. And then when you got home, you would get in trouble because 1, you did something wrong, and 2, somebody else had to beat your ass for it. And now it's not like that. And you can't even look at somebody's kid without fear of getting sued or so.
But speaking of kids, what do you think of these teenagers who have organized the most recent march?
I think they're freaking amazing. And that last shooting actually happened in my boss's neighborhood. Well, I don't want to say he lived very close to that school, and if his kids had not gone to private school, then they would have gone to this school. And actually, one of his daughter's friends was one of the girls that got killed. So he told me that he's met all of the parents of the children who were killed at different memorials and things. I think that these kids put us all to shame. And I can't wait to see, what they're going to do in the world, because if they're able to make a change now, I mean, this is what a huge civics lesson this is, and just the fact that they're not afraid of these politicians, and I think one of the signs that I saw said it was a young girl, and it said, "I can't wait to vote you out." And so I think that I think it's awesome.
I have one last question for you. What, because you have a granddaughter, Luna,
Yes.
who's kind of the apple of your eye.
Yes.
What's your piece of advice for her when she becomes a young woman about being a young woman in this world?
You know, that's a hard question to answer because I don't know what the world is going to be like when she becomes a young woman. I'm certainly hoping that it's way different than it is right now, but I think that if I had to tell her anything, it would be, you know, that don't let anybody ever tell you that there's something that you can't do, or that there's some reason that they're better than you. Just beat the radios. But you know, just stand up for who you are, and you know, if you want to, you can do whatever you want. Because when I was, excuse me, everything that I wanted to do when I was little, I was always discouraged from. You know, it's like I wanted to go in the Merchant Marines, and my father said, "No girls in the Merchant Marines, they don't take women." And in the 60s, they might not have, you know. And so, and I don't think that my parents were like aware of these conversations that I was having with each of them, because my mother was kind of progressive and was, you know, yes, and let me wear ties and cufflinks and things like that, and forward thinking, and you know, you should get into computers, and you should, you know, but my father was like, girls can't do that. So and then I wanted to go into I wanted to like be an actor or go into radio or something like that, and everybody was like, "Oh, you can't make any money doing that. You don't want to do that." And so then I kind of feel like I just ended up like not knowing what I wanted to be, because every time I wanted to be something, that choice got taken away from me. So,
is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to say?
I don't think so. But if I think of something later,
We can add it in.
Okay.
Thank you so much for doing this, Pat.
Thank you.
This was a delight.
Not nearly as frightening as I was afraid it was going to be.
See? Well, thank you. We'll stop here.